Hi Jeff, how you doing?
I'm well, Aaron. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me out today for your ghost walk tour. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing and how this all got started out here.
Sure. First, glad to have you out here on the other side of the Columbia River at the Vancouver Barracks.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
It's good to have you here. Now, I grew up here around the Vancouver Barracks. My dad was stationed here, and I enlisted in the Army Reserves as a teenager here.
Wow.
So this place is kind of in my blood.
Gotcha.
And in those years, I've just gathered stories, my own experiences, and others. Kind of this mix of these paranormal or anomalous incidents, but also looking at them historically. And so trying to put them in a historic context.
Gotcha. Well, there's tons of history out here, lots of historic homes. Obviously, the grounds here are historic. So tell us a little bit about how you got started with the actual ghost walking tour, and a little bit about what we're going to see today, because we want to entice the viewers to come and see the actual walking tour.
Wow, so many questions. Well, basically, I did history walks, and we had a lot of interest. But I have had a lot of odd experiences myself here. Some people call it paranormal, and so I've just collected those because I'm a storyteller and I gather stories.
Master storyteller, by the way.
Thank you. And it was kind of a hard road trying to get permission to do this because, justly so, people want to protect the reputation of the barracks.
Sure.
But there's such curiosity on the part of the general public about the paranormal. Finally, they let me do a couple trials. Last year at Halloween, I gave walks. So they okayed me to start this summer doing these very same kind of ghost walks.
Wow.
And what we're going to do is we're going to start from here, walk along the parade ground. We're going to cross over into the western half of the barracks, and we were going to make kind of like a loop, and we will actually finish up just opposite the street where we are now at the Grant House, which is the oldest existing building at the Vancouver Barracks, dating to 1849.
Awesome. Now, do you go inside the buildings, or is just this an exterior walk?
This is just an outside walk.
Okay.
They may open it up for inside of some buildings, but a lot of these buildings are still in use. And
right.
because of that, during the weekdays, there are tenants, and on the weekends, they're shut down.
Okay. And are your walks at all at night, or is it during the day?
Well, I do a mix. It's Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays.
Okay.
One walk on Friday, and that's late afternoon, and depending on the time of year, it'll end at dark. And I do 2 on Saturday, one afternoon, one evening.
Okay.
And on Sunday, I do an early afternoon, about 2 o'clock, because a lot of people I found they'll go to church, they'll go to breakfast, and then they'll finish the day off with a ghost walk.
Isn't that crazy?
It is.
Because we find the same thing with the tours that I do in Portland as well. So
yeah,
the churchgoers love the paranormal. So,
well, ghosts are an extension of our life.
Exactly. Well, good. And then what do you have? Do you do anything special for the month of October for these tours? Do you bump them up? Do you do anything special at night for the paranormal month? Well, I call the month of October Paranormal Month, but...
Well, I've got some things in the... Yeah,
I don't
make
want
sure
it to
the
hit
sign
you in the
doesn't
head.
fall down.
Yes. I'm worried about you getting knocked out. We don't need another ghost out here.
That's right, as well as that would end this video really quick.
Pretty much. Jeff was a good man.
Yes, a quiet man, they said.
Quiet man.
So far, we're trying to do other events. For instance, the Grant House, which I already mentioned to you, 1849. Maybe Halloween night, we'll be having some inside events, spirits with spirits, a little wine tasting, a little dinner, things like that.
Okay.
And it might be possible to go into 1 or 2 of the buildings in the evenings. I still have to get permission for that.
Okay. All right. So then let's go ahead and get started and give everyone a little bit of a taste of what your ghost walk is about.
All right. Sounds good to me.
All right. Let's go.
All right.
All right, Jeff, so we're standing in front of the Grant House. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what this part of the walk is about?
Sure. The Grant House, which is behind us, is the oldest building at the Vancouver Barracks. They laid down the foundations in 1849, and this was a combination of post headquarters, commander's residence, and the officers' mess. Bachelor officers 8 year as well. And Years later, it became a post library, then a museum, and for several decades it's been a restaurant.
Okay.
And it is the second most haunted location in the Vancouver Barracks. And the resident ghost is that of a Colonel Alfred Sully. And he has been seen, or people have interacted with him as recently as a decade ago.
Wow. Okay.
And he looks solid. People talk to him. He walks away around the corner, and then he's gone.
Really?
Yeah.
Very nice. And then we're going to also walk past a few other houses.
Yeah.
And so,
the various building phases of the Vancouver Barracks on Officers Row, which is what we're going to walk along, took place from 1849 to about 1910. And there's this whole range of different building designs, from something that looks like Napoleonic period mansard roofs to high Victorians as well, and some neo-colonials. And each of these houses, well, many of these houses have stories associated with them. I'm going to share one or two with you as we're walking that direction.
Well, let's go do that.
All right.
All right.
So, Aaron,
Yes.
as we're walking down here, I can't give you this building location because they don't want people knocking on doors.
Sure.
But in this particular case, it's a very sad story where the house is haunted. In the 1970s, early 80s, this one young woman had an abusive boyfriend, and she managed to get away from him. And she was rebuilding her life. She had stayed with friends and family for a little while. And then she got a job, got a little money ahead, and she moved into one of the small apartments here on Officers Row. And unfortunately, he caught up with her, and they had a fight in the kitchen where he picked up a knife, and he killed her with a knife. And it left blood stains all over the walls. And for years afterward, every so often, the blood stains will actually stain through on the kitchen wall.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Very sad.
Is her ghost seen anywhere, or any apparitions, or
no?
Is it just the blood that seeps through?
Yeah, fortunately not. But when we talk about spiritual stains, here we have now a physical stain.
Wow, wow, that's terrible.
It is. And I didn't like talking about it, but it made it into the local newspapers on one of these Halloween supplements. So then the cat was out of the bag.
Right.
And I went ahead and just printed it out.
Wow. So Jeff, tell me why we're standing here in this particular lot.
Yeah, this is on Officers Row, and there used to stand here log cabins from the early days.
Oh.
And they pulled them down, and I really pause here for some of the stories because there has been problems in the past with people. They take the tour, they love the walks, they love the stories, and they get curious, and so they will do things like knock on the door at 2 in the morning. So there are a couple places that are famous by name, like the Grant House. And so I don't mind stopping and talking there. But when we come to some of these other stories, particularly the tragic ones, I try and find a spot where there is no building. That way, the story is still there, the setting's there, but nobody has this desire to go knocking on the doors.
Gotcha. So what story can you tell us about this particular spot, or...
Well, the story I generally tell here is about, it happened to a friend of mine. He had rented space here on Officers Row some years ago, and he was a photographer, and he lived in the back, and he had his little studio in front. And he was divorced, and he was dating. And when he first started dating, this one date came up to his room with him, and he went and got both of them drinks, and he had to go use the bathroom. When he came back, she was very, very pale, and she said, "While you were gone, this woman's ghost appeared to me."
Really?
Yeah, and he said she warned me not to drink, and she warned me about men, and so I got to go.
Wow.
And I jokingly say, and he told me too, if she didn't want to go out with me, all she had to do was just say no. And,
okay.
Yeah, and so he thought, maybe this is just kind of odd way for her to get away.
Right.
But a short while later, he had a second date that he brought up there, and he went out of the room and came back, and he didn't tell anybody. There's no prompting. Also said, "There's a ghost here. It's a woman, and this time her name is Elizabeth." Oh. And she said not to drink and to be careful when I'm walking up and down the stairs.
Wow.
Yeah, and so he and I were talking some more, and it just seemed to make sense to us that this might be some kind of a remnant spirit as a guardian, with young women drinking, and the steps in that building were very, very steep. So perhaps she took a tumble, and now whenever there are women in that room who are drinking maybe a bit too much, she wants to warn them, be very careful. Don't go down and fall down the stairs.
So only women see this apparition?
Correct. He was there and sitting and talking to the second date, and she said, "Don't you see her? She's standing right next to you."
Wow.
And yeah, and sometimes it's even creepier if you don't see the ghost, because
of course,
they're right over your shoulder.
Wow. Sometimes it's even scarier that way.
I agree.
Wow. So where are we going next?
Well, we're going to continue down and to this place called the Howard House.
Okay, well, let's do it.
All right.
All right. So tell us a little bit about where we're standing.
Sure, Aaron. This is not necessarily one of the haunted spots of the Vancouver Barracks. This is a memorial to the history of the barracks itself, and it pays special tribute to some of the more famous heroic soldiers who served at the barracks. These cannons that we're leaning against, a lot of people think that they're original guns.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. It's actually a community contribution. These were made by the Fort Vancouver High School shop class.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and this whole place was dedicated in the early 1990s. And if people come to visit and they walk around this, they'll see that the whole perimeter around the cannons is very geometrical in shape, because when they used to build these fortresses from the 1700s on, everything was about interlocking fire and the angles and things like that. So that's what this symbolizes. Now, in the back behind us, you see that kind of monument back there.
Yes.
That's what I was starting to talk about. Was there are 4 Medal of Honor recipients buried at the Post Cemetery.
Okay.
And this is dedicated to them. And this was unveiled in 1991 by Colin Powell.
Oh.
When he was chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Later on, he became Secretary of State.
Right, okay.
And so this is as close, most people think of the barracks, but the real Post Cemetery is over a mile away at what was the northwest corner of the barracks.
Okay.
So it kind of brings the cemetery and that memory back here.
Very well done. It's beautiful.
It is.
Okay, so Jeff, tell us where we're at now, this beautiful front porch that we're sitting on without our iced teas.
I know the mint juleps are on their way.
Oh, good.
This is the O.O. Howard House. It's named after Oliver Otis Howard, who was a very interesting person. He was the commander of the Department of Columbia when he was here, and in the mid-1870s, they built this house for him and his family to live in.
Wow, okay.
Now, in the years since then, it continued as a residence for other high-ranking officers. Eventually, it turned into an all-ranks club, an NCO club, if you will, where you could get a haircut while your wife had her hair done, and then you could go to the bar and have a beer or two.
Oh, that sounds good. So tell us the good stuff. Tell us about the ghost.
Nobody quite knows who the ghost here is, but the origins go back to the 1990s. Somebody forgot to unplug some equipment in here. The building caught fire.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was gutted, and it took years to fix it up. And so it was all sealed off on the ground floor. And one day, the post commander and his son were standing outside looking at the building, and they saw, standing in the second floor bay window, looking out at them, was a woman in white, and that bay window is right above us there.
Do they know who the woman was, or do you happen to know who the woman was? Did anybody die in that fire?
No, nobody died in the fire, and nobody knows who she was or is. Over those years, these post commanders, many of them had daughters. To the best of my knowledge, nobody's died here, but a lot of people, men and women, have lived here for over 130 years. Okay,
so the big question as a paranormal investigator is, has anyone investigated this location?
To the best of my knowledge, no. Currently, it's the offices of Congresswoman Jamie Herrera Butler. I don't think that it'd be easy getting clearance for that.
Well, what's her number?
Dial 1-800.
All right, we'll get on it. So to learn more about the ghost stories of the grounds here and the house, you need to take this ghost walk tour with Jeff Davis.